I recently had the good fortune of acquiring a collection of about 100 1-inch Type-C broadcast video reels, which came from a New York City television station, previously known as WNEW and WNYW, but now more commonly known as Fox 5. The story of these reels and their rescue is pretty interesting. Around late 1990, a gentleman noticed them outside the Fox 5 studios next to the dumpster, and proceeded to load as many as he could into his van. The guy was an antique seller and knew that these television tapes could have historical significance, so he made the correct decision in saving them from the landfill. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and I popped into his store and quickly noticed a few of the reels out in the open for sale. After expressing my interest, he brought me into the basement to show me the rest of the collection, noting to me that they had been living down there for the past 34 years, without a single reel ever having been sold. We haggled briefly, and I wound up taking the entire lot, which also included around 35 2-inch quadruplex reels from the 1960s. The 1-inch Type-C reels date from 1982 to 1990, and as far as I know have never been digitized. If you're a tape collector or know anything about magnetic tape or any media for that matter, you probably know that attics and basements are just about the worst place to store any format. The temperatures are often not ideal, and the humidity conditions can do extensive damage to your tapes. Unsurprisingly, a good 40 or so of the reels in this collection are covered in mold, mildew, dust, and dirt, making them unplayable in their current condition. But with a little know-how and elbow grease, I think I can get them to play. Let's take a look at one of these reels. So here's our reel. I already know it's dirty, but let's just take a look. Yeah, that is disgusting. That's all mold and mildew and dirt and other garbage that is going to be extremely detrimental to playing. But luckily, we can fix this up. And all I'm gonna need is a toothbrush, a screwdriver, 99% alcohol, and some microfiber wipes. First things first, you need a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're gonna go about and remove these screws because we need to get to the entire reel. You might think, oh, just the exposed parts are gonna be disgusting. But no, that is all gonna be caked all around this. Despite the fact that this wasn't a hard plastic mailer all those years down in the basement, it did get extensive mold and mildew and dirt damage. So it's not just going to be on the exposed parts, it's going to be on this whole thing. So in order to get access to that, we need to get these screws out. So if you didn't believe me before about this whole reel probably being dirty, I've removed all the screws. Now I'm taking off the top, and just look at that. That is just disgusting. You probably don't want to breathe much of that in. I just look at my finger. Luckily, I've dealt with this so much that it's not even that big of a deal to me. But the crystals have formed. That is going to be embedded into the reel of the tape, so we're going to have to clean this on the machine after we get most of this surface level stuff off. And it's not just going to be on the top, it's also going to be on the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and pour this alcohol onto the surface of the tape edge on a few sides. And then I'm going to take my microfiber cloth. Remember, microfiber is the best because it doesn't leave behind any artifacts, and I'm just going to start scrubbing. Now, even though that already looks a lot better, this is a process that takes time. It could take upwards to a half hour or an hour to get all that gunk off. And also, I'm going to have to reapply and use the toothbrush. So periodically going through, scrubbing out that mold and mildew in areas where it really lights up. And just keep repeating this process until it looks as good as it can get. just something to note is that even after scrubbing multiple layers off, you're still going to get a little bit of stained residue, and that's just permanent, but luckily it's not going to affect the playback. Additionally, when all that alcohol seeps into the reel, it's going to stay there until the baking process. So this looks pretty good for now. Let's get to the other side. But first, this needs to be cleaned off, and that could just be done in any sink. We don't want any of that corrosion growing back onto the tape for the future. So all you have to do is take some dish soap, some Dawn, pour it on there, and then because this stuff is on pretty tight, I like to use some steel wool. Good as new. All that residue's off. It's perfectly cleaned. The cats are complaining. And now we're going to do the other side. Now for those who thought, oh, the bottom side's not going to be as bad. Well, it is. And you can already see some of that alcohol has seeped through. But we're going to have to do the whole thing over again. Rather than show you it, I figure you all get the point by now. So we're going to do the same exact thing to this side of the reel. Well, that cleaned up nicely. And so did the bottom of the metal. Therefore, we're going to put it back on, screw it in, and then we're going to have to put this in the food dehydrator to bake for about 4 hours in order to get rid of any chemical stickiness and also to dry out any of that alcohol that has seeped into the reel. Well, the tape's in the jerky dehydrator. Let's get it baking at 155 internal. Oh God, it feels like I'm talking about a steak. For 5 hours. We'll check back when this is done.
5 hours later.
Well, it's been a good 5 hours, and I think it's time to get this thing unplugged. Tape is still fine. We're going to let it cool off for a bit, and then we are going to start the reel cleaning process on the 1-inch machine. Well, we've got the reel put on the machine. This is a Sony BVH 3000 video quarter for Type-C NTSC 1-inch video reels. This is broadcast quality. This would have come out of a studio. These machines were made starting around the late 1980s, and after all these years, it's held up pretty well. So what we're going to do is we are going to clean the reel. We've got isopropyl alcohol, 99%, put onto one of our TX304 cotton Tex wipes. It leaves no artifacts. It does not damage the tape. What we're going to do is we're going to put this around the tape at a spot where it's open, and then we're just going to fast forward. And while we're doing that, the reel is going to be physically cleaned from the inside. Now, before some of you hesitate and say, whoa, do you really want all that grime getting on the head? Well, I don't have any other machine to run this thing through. I don't have a mechanism to do this manually. And any sort of grime or dirt that gets on the head, so long as you clean it off with some alcohol and a Tex wipe right afterwards, so it doesn't get caked on for plays and plays and plays, you should be fine. Let's fire up the old fast forward. And just take a look at how fast that motor's running, the video head. It's a pretty impressive machine in operation. And I'm gonna launch this into fast forward mode and put that wipe right on the surface of the tape. So as you can see, it's making full contact with the tape, getting any remaining residue, dirt and grime away. It's moving along just fine, showing that the baking process was successful. It's not tight, it's not struggling to move, and all that dirt and grime is coming right off. You can even see it seeping through on the edge there. We got an extensive level of dirt and grime off, and now we rewind. Alright, that is rewound, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take one more of our Tex wipes, wet it with that 99% alcohol, as you can see, and we're just going to clean the head. And this last step of cleaning the head and the head drum is super important because you could just see that little bit of dirt and grime that was left over from the cleaning process got onto there, and we don't want that affecting our playback and staying on there for any prolonged period of time. Now that that's done, we can loop this back up and we will start the digital capture. And now for the moment of truth. Did this reel clean up using the budget way of cleaning a 1-inch Type-C video reel that was covered in mold and mildew and dirt? Did my process work? Is the picture going to be good? Or was this a waste of time? Let's find out. Close that up, and let's hit play. Head's gonna load. Oh. All right. So despite the fact that there's a little bit of distortion on the top of the tape, for the most part, it looks pretty good. This is probably a news program from WNEW. Looks like they're talking about how to find a bargain. Not sure what year this is from, but I'm sure as I go through it, I can ascertain that.
Well, I have been looking through the pages and fashion magazines for years. Glamour, Vogue, Bizarre. Look at all the beautiful clothing in there. A really luscious suede coat, mustard yellow, which is the color for the season.
It's got a shawl collar, which is very, very fashionable and new this year, and we're going to see more of her and what she's hiding underneath a little bit later.
The premise here is how to sew your own child's Halloween costume,
This
correct?
is Stephanie, who's going to model for
Did
us.
you actually make this costume yourself? You're so clever, Ruth.
Its simplicity pattern helped me.
One never knows. Hi, welcome back, everybody. Cindy Pickley is a familiar face to Channel 5 viewers. She, for a long time, did our weekend weather. And I want everybody in the studio to say, go Mets, go. Ready? I mean, really make it work for the weekend. 1, 2, 3.
Go, Mets, go!
You're going to need more than that. I'm sorry. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Well, everyone, this just goes to show that with a little tender loving care, these 1-inch Type-C video reels covered in mold can clean up quite nicely. When I started with this reel, it was absolutely, positively unplayable. And now it has been saved for all future generations to watch who may be curious about fashion and Halloween trends of 1986. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope some of you may use this technique for your moldy tapes. But of course, if you don't feel confident enough or don't have proper 1-inch video equipment, feel free to send them over to Reiss Restorations. Our phone number, Facebook, and email address are right there on the screen for you. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.